of dudes rapping, they ain't nice as me. 98% ain't lived the same type of life as me. The judge gave me life and then they sent me where the life is be. That level 4 with depth and vice, the type of stuff they like to see. Two choices, fight or flee. I refuse to die a chump. I never been a mark, but damn, it's scary when that riot jump. I seen dudes cry, get punked, or some sexually brutalized. Knew a dude who lost his life and he was only doing 5 year-long racial fights when homie all you do is ride. Lonely days and nights up in a hole causing suicide. From the moment you arrive, you see the Mexican mafia. AB skinheads with big giant swastikas. Pro-black philosophers, the BGF, the Kumi, and Muslims who will murk you from the nation to the Sunni. That MS was loony, quick to ride up on they rival. Even Christians went to church, hide knives up in they Bible. Political and tribal, the Crips and Damus, the Long Beach, the Hubs and the Dubs and the Grooves, the IE, the Bakersfield, the Dago Pyrus, the hustlers quick to roll, the gangsters don't move. Whatever clique you choose, you better stick to your rules. I done seen cats get hit and the force will lift them off their shoes. The gun tower got the power, they will kill you if you move. The gun tower got the power, they will kill you if you move.
Say what's cracking, YouTube? Say what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down. Now, for those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994, I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life, and I served 24 years straight in the California prison system. During those times, I accumulated some good stories, and I'm going to share one with y'all today. Yeah, that's me rapping on the intro. The flow is nothing like Curtis Blow. That song is finally done, released. I just need to shoot a video. Hopefully, that song will be up sometime this month. If not, early October at the latest, I promise. Man, if you want to check out more of my music, go to my YouTube playlist, scroll down to gas stations. You will find a lot of my music there. Now let's hop right up into this story. So, this story is not going to be one of my prison stories. This is going to be one of my stories when I was out there in the street. Actually, at this point in time, I'm actually on the run for a situation which eventually led me to come into prison. I got sentenced to 9 years plus life. Then I had a trailing murder case. I ended up taking another deal and ended up getting 16 years plus life, right? So the story stems from, I happen to be in Montana. You know, I'm out there in Billings, Montana. I'm out there hustling, you know. One day in particular, I end up running out of drugs. The bad thing about selling drugs out there in Montana is it's in the middle of nowhere in terms of a pipeline for connections. And so you either had to go possibly to Denver or maybe Seattle. You know, I was going back to California to get my work, right? So I ended up running out of drugs on this one particular day. Then, you know, I had a situation. I had a situation going on with two women in my life. One of my girlfriends found out my other girlfriend was pregnant. She called tripping, and so that was enough for me to hop on the plane. I'm out of here. I'll deal with this later on when I come back, right? So I end up going to a party, man. And unfortunately, for those involved, I ended up getting into a shooting, which led to 3 people being shot at the party. One dude got shot in the head. He didn't pass away, but he had to have a lobotomy. And 2 other dudes got shot in the leg. One of them being my homie, who I had known all my life. So of course, after that happened, we get up out of there. The very next day, you know, my name is in the paper, or the day after, my name is in the paper that I'm wanted for this shooting. Also, who was wanted was a homie of mine by the name of OZ. Now, OZ, I had been knowing OZ pretty much all my life. You know, my dad and his grandfather was friends. My mom and his mom was friends and are still good friends today, you know. And so, initially, a couple of days after the shooting, I end up going back to Billings, Montana, which was kind of crazy, you know, but I'm young, you know, because what was crazy about it is because at that time in Billings, Montana, I was also on probation for, I was out there selling drugs and, well, initially I was at one of my partner spots out there and his house got raided. I was the only one there. I tried to flush some drugs down the toilet. They ended up getting a small amount of drugs and, eventually arrested me for possession of dangerous drugs. Now, before I can have that case adjudicated and dealt with, maybe about 5 or 6 months later, the police actually raided my house and they had found a small amount of drugs that the homie OZ had got drunk and lost one day. And so, At the time of this, when he's drunk, he calls me and tell me, hey, homie, because I'm actually in California. So when I get back from California, maybe 2 or 3 days later, like the next day or two, they raid the house. They find a small amount of drugs that he had lost downstairs. And so now living in that apartment, it's me, my brother, and my homie OZ. Now, my brother is a straight square. He doesn't sell drugs. He doesn't do any of that stuff. So long story short, in order to get the charges dropped against my brother, because of course they initially charged all three of us and took us to jail, me and the homie OZ, we end up pleading guilty to the drugs, even though it was only a small amount and really only enough for one person. And the police knew that, right? But in order for them to drop the charges on my brother, me and OZ, we pled guilty to it. Now, part of the deal was that my brother had to take and pass a polygraph test saying that he wasn't selling drugs, the drugs weren't his, so on and so forth, which he did that and passed the test, and then so they end up dropping the charges on my brother. So I say all that to say, at this point in time, I'm on probation, and I have to check in, I believe it's every 2 weeks with my probation officer. So that's one of the reasons that I ended up going back to Billings, Montana. So I'm there a few days, right? And I'm thinking they're really not tripping on me because at the time when I was down in California, maybe a couple of months earlier, I had just bought a Toyota Corolla. I ended up getting it painted, fresh candy paint, trimmed it in gold. I was going to put some Daytons on it, but the waiting period to get the Daytons was like maybe a couple of weeks. It was an amount of time that I didn't have. So I ended up getting some roasters and ended up going back to Billings, Montana. So now I'm driving around in this car and I'm thinking, okay, because at the time, this is 1993, so a car like this is extremely unusual in Billings, Montana. I haven't got pulled over, so maybe a couple of days later, I'm in one of my other cars, actually a car that I had bought from my girlfriend, and my homie is in my green car. The police pull up at the arcade bar where we was chilling at. We pull away, and the police actually get behind the car that I'm in and not my green car. So yes, I have the feeling that for whatever reason, they are wanting me for the shooting that had took place a few days earlier back in California. So when they pull me over, long story short, I run, I get up out of there. I'm fast. I'm 19 years old, maybe 140 pounds. I'm out of there. That same night, actually, another one of my homies took me to Denver, Colorado, actually the city of Aurora. I had a couple cousins staying out there. And so this is how I winded up in Aurora. Maybe a few days later, I had my car drove down to Aurora so I would have some transportation. Now, unfortunately, that car is that Toyota that I told you guys about. I believe I have a picture which I'll include into the story. And so this is 1993, right? Gang banging is at its heyday out there in Denver, Colorado. Them dudes was extremely off the hook. They was gang banging. They with the business. It seems like every other day is some type of shooting or a murder or something jumping off. I think they was calling that year the Summer of Madness or something to that extent, right? But it was crazy. You had a lot of California-based gangs out there. Then, of course, you also had the gangs that had originated in Denver. I believe you had a very notorious blood set out there known as Park Hill. I believe there was a set the West Side, 33rd Street, or something like that. I may not exactly be saying the names right, but those dudes definitely was with the business, right? Then, like I said before, you had a lot of LA-based gangs out there. You had a lot of dudes out there from Denver claiming these LA-based gangs, and it almost seemed as if they was trying to prove something to them, and so it definitely was off the chain, right? And so by me being from California, I'm used to being harassed and pulled over by the police when you are young, you're black, and you're especially driving certain type of cars that gang members are known to be fond of. So I definitely had some trepidations and reservations about driving a green car because I knew that there was a high chance that I would get pulled over. Of course, due to the fact that I'm on the run, I can't present them with my driver's license because, of course, then they're going to take me to jail, right? So that's something that gave me big pause as far as driving that car. But then once again, I'm young, I can't stay in the house, and so I'm in the car, right? So initially I chose while I was out there not to have a weapon on me because I'm thinking that when I get pulled over, they're going to do an extensive search of the vehicle. is what I'm used to coming from California. If they find a gun, I'm going to jail, and then definitely I won't be able to get out. Now, what I did have in my favor is, like I said, I had been living out in Montana. My brother was also living out in Montana. So in Montana at the time, and I believe it still is today, your social security number was your driver's license. Also now, like I said, my homie OZ, he is also on the run. So after I'm out in Denver for a while, maybe a week or two, we constantly in communication with each other. He tells me, hey, homie, listen, man, I want to come out there where you at, right? So I said, okay, don't trip. I said, I'm going to send you money for a bus ticket. I'm going to send you some money to get some dope, bring some dope out here, and we're going to come out here and, stay out the way, do our thing, right? So I forget exactly what it was. I may have sent him enough money to bring out 18 ounces or something. I had a connection, and so the ounces was only like maybe $300 or $400 a piece if I got 9 or better, right? So I sent him the bread. A few days later, I go pick him up at the bus station, and we out there and we doing our thing. Come to find out later, him catching the bus out there was extremely dangerous because they had a lot of gang task force down there watching the bus stations for gang members who was coming out there from California areas with large amounts of drugs to sell drugs. So luckily, he slid through the cracks. So now I'm out there in Aurora, I'm living on a street that's known as Dayton Street, right across from these apartments, and people would call the apartments the Carter Apartments in reference to a movie that it came out called New Jack City. I guess the apartments resemble the Carter Apartments in New Jack City. And so where I'm living, I'm staying with my cousin, Chris Booty. Yeah, that's his real name. And he happened to stay right across from these Carter Apartments, right? So I'm staying in a real high profile area in terms of, the police is always driving by. They always going to the Carter Apartments for calls and stuff like that, right? And so as I'm out there, I'm young, I can't sit still. So I'm driving around, I got a lot of gold on me. I'm in this new whip, this fresh whip with this candy paint. I'm driving around, meeting females out there, hollering at females and stuff. So one particular night, I'm and I'm being greedy because I got a female at the house with me, but I tell her, hey, I need to go pick my aunt up from bingo. But what I really want to do is ride past this club that's in the town over called Montbellows. I want to ride past there. And, when they let people out the club, it's a lot of females out there. So, a lot of people may refer to the term as parking lot pimping. So I wanted to slide through the parking lot, in my whip, and holler at some of the honeys. So I told the story before. In going over there, some gang members see me later on. They follow me around the corner. They end up throwing a beer bottle at my car, hit the back window, boom! But initially, I thought that they had shot at me, right? So it spooked me. Had my heart bumping. Doop, 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 doop. So after that, I said, man, forget this mess. I'm supposed to go down and get me a gun. I don't care if I get caught with the gun, so on and so forth. I got to be strapped out here because these dudes out here is wild. At that time, you could have somebody go buy a gun right over the counter with no waiting period if they had a Denver's driver's license, right? So like I said, I was out there. I had actually several cousins out there. So I had one of my cousins take me to the pawn shop, and I ended up purchasing a 380, So it was a small gun that I felt that I could hide, but enough power to get somebody up off me, right? And so after this damn near fiasco at the club with these dudes trying to take old Chill off the planet before God wanted me to leave, at nighttime sometimes I stopped riding around in my green car because I felt that was attracting too much attention. I wanted to be a little bit more inconspicuous, and so I was driving around in one of my cousin cars. So once again, I'm trying to go back over to this club. Now, the name of the club, I believe, was Bernard's. The club was off a street called Peoria in Montbellows. Now, the club was a 25 and older club. But every now and then, depending on how I was dressed and depending on who was at the door, I could weasel my way up in there, as long as, they wanted you to be, dressed, no tennis shoes. They didn't want to attract a certain type of crowd, right? So on this night in particular, me and the homie OZ, we was able to get up in there. OZ was probably about 5'10", 5'11", 215, 225 pounds, kind of a big dude and stuff. So he definitely looked older than 25 or at least 25, And so on this particular night, I was dressed. I had put on some dress clothes or whatever. I was able to weasel my way up in the club. So I'm up in the club, I'm chilling, I'm hanging out, I'm doing my thing, At this particular time too, I had a lot of jewelry. I had a lot of gold chains. I had a lot of gold rings on my finger. I had been out to Montana. Surprisingly enough, Billings, Montana had a decent amount of pimps from different parts of the country out there. And so, I began hanging out with these dudes, shooting dice, emulating these dudes a little bit. These dudes would have on these big old giant rings and stuff like that. And so I had started, I liked the look, and I had a lot of rings on my fingers, a lot of chains, so on and so forth, right? And so now, I'm at the club at Montbello's Bernard's in on the club on Peoria Street. So I'm in the club, I'm chilling, I'm doing my thing. I'm walking through the club, hollering at females. At some point in time, I happen to lock eyes with this dude. By the way he was dressed, I definitely could tell he was a Crip, right? He had the look, khakis, sagging pants or whatever he had on, blue jeans. I definitely could tell he had a lot of blue on. I definitely could tell he was gang affiliated. He also happened to have a hat on that said KC, for Kansas City. Now, come to find out later on, Kansas City is not too far from Denver. And at that time back then, you would have a lot of dudes from Kansas City come down to Denver to hang out the clubs or, hustle. Who knows what they was down there doing, right? So now me and dude, we in the club, right? We happen to lock eyes and stuff. So I push up on dude. I'm like, what's up, homie? You know me or something? He say a little something, we have a little standoff, and some people come over there and basically, break us up or whatever, right? So yeah, so throughout the club, periodically, I would catch the dude just looking at me, pointing to me, talking or whatever. So fast forward now till when it's time to leave the club. Me and the homie OZ, we bounce. We get up out of there. Now, as I'm leaving the club, I see dude again. He looking at me. So I turn around. I say, hey, what's up? What's up, cuz? What's up? He say a little something or whatever, but he don't approach me or come to where I'm at. So now me and my homie OZ, we go hop in my cousin's car that I'm driving, right? So now as we leave and we getting out through the club, we leave and we finally, it's a lot of people and stuff. And this was a club that was really big. And a lot of times, I think the club would close around 2:00, the police may come up there around 1:30. And the club itself, they would put these barricades up in front of the entrance to stop people from coming in, because a lot of people like to cruise the parking lot, right? So a lot of times you leave, there'll be a lot of police out there and stuff or whatever. So on this particular night, we leaving or whatever, we finally get up out of there. And there was a particular, I'm not going to say it, but I'm not going to say the name of it, but it was a particular type of car that was following me, right? So now, when I leave, you leave, and it's a long line of cars, people trying to get out of there. It's slow. People looking, talking to the females, so on and so forth. So now when I'm leaving Montbello's to head back to Aurora, I'm going down Peoria. I got to make a few turns here and there. Now, this car is following me, right? So when I make a turn or two, the car makes the same turn or two. So initially, I'm thinking this may be just somebody from Aurora, of course, that's leaving the club, and they headed back to Aurora. But now, as I'm making more turns, the car is making more turns. Now, due to the fact that I'm already on the run, my spidey senses are already heightened, right? So I'm paying attention to things that I normally would maybe have not paid attention to if I was not on the run. So now, like I say, I notice this car is following me. So at some point in time, I look in the mirror, and now I see that it's this dude who I got into it with. And it's like another dude, or at least one or two people also in the car with him, right? So I say to the homie AOZA, homie, this them fools that, we had words with in the club, or I had words with, or whatever, right? So I'm driving. So now I'm starting instead of making the turns that I normally would make, I'm starting to make just random turns now. And every time I make a random turn, this dude continues to follow me, right? So, back then, man, I wasn't playing no games and I wasn't taking no names. I say to the homie, hey, listen, man, I'm just to make one more turn. So now I'm driving, but I'm speeding up. I speed up the car, he'll make the same turn. I tell the homie, listen, I'm just to make one more turn, man. If dude follow me, I got something for him, right? So I speed up a little bit, you know, to give myself enough room in order to do what's on my mind. So now I speed up, you know, I turn randomly. I'm in a neighborhood now. I really don't even quite know exactly where I'm at. And so all of a sudden I see that car bend the corner as well, right? And so I make one more turn. I tell the homie pretty much, you got to read between the lines here. I tell the homie, right, I believe dude behind me is a sinner, man. And so I'm just to get out and pray for this dude, right? And so when I pull over, I hop out the car, you know, and I already know what type of Bible verses I would like to speak to this brother about. And so when the brother spin the corner around, I hop out, I run up on him, and I immediately pray for him, if you get what I'm saying. The prayers that I was giving to this brother was so powerful, right, that he spent and he drove, bam, he crashed and hit a couple of cars, started hollering, speaking in tongue, whatever. I don't know exactly what he was doing up in there, right? But at this point, I'm figuring, okay, you know what? My work here is done. I have exorcised the demons in this sinner. The demons has fled from his body, and they fled in such a powerful way, he crashed, right? So I hop back into the car, and I get on like I've been shit on. I'm out of there like last year. You know what I'm saying? So I hop up back in the car. We get on up out of there, right? Go back to the house. Now, like I said, me and the homie OZ, we are both already on the run for this attempted murder that occurred in Bannon. So after that, due to this exorcism that I was nice enough to perform for these brothers, the homie OZ was spooked. He didn't want to get back in the car with me no more. He was like, hey man, chill, you know, you own one, homie, or whatever. But like I say, I'm just doing my good duties as a Christian. So anyway, you know, a couple of days later, you know, OZ, he didn't hop back in the car with me for a while. You know, he was cool on that. So one day I'm out, I'm about to go hit some corners, you know, and it's a nice day. Like I say, it's summertime in Denver, right? So he decides to hop into the car with me, right? So now we cruising and stuff. Now, a lot of times, in the daytime, after the exorcism, I kind of took to when I would hop in the green car, every now and then I wouldn't take the pistol with me. It just all depended on how I was feeling, right? So on this day in particular, we hop in the car. We just to go to actually the city of Denver and go down to one of these spots down there in the 5 Points and get some barbecue, right? So we hop in the car. We going down this long street called Colfax. You know, we in the green car, you know, with the trimmed in gold, the car that I believe, you know, will attract attention sometimes from the police or whatever. So now as we're going down the street, all of a sudden, I notice a police car gets behind us. So the homie OZ said, hey, homie, you see that car? You see that car back there? I said, yeah, don't trip, you know, just you know, stay cool or whatever. So we drive a block or two. We going down Colfax. The police car pulls us over.